it's starting to make its way to the U.S. in a way that I feel like
yeah.
it's starting to become a very big talking point.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And so for me personally, kind of when we were thinking about the topic, what our topic should be for this month's show, I was kind of getting into the idea of what politics is based off of, and how we run countries. And so I was getting a little philosophical. The two requirements that I have learned in surprisingly, in my public school education, the two requirements to actually having a country: you need to have defined borders and you need to have a permanent population. And if you don't have those, you don't have a country, because you don't know who is in your country, you don't know where your country is, and so you can't really have any actual laws, because laws have to be definite. And so the left is attacking a lot of these already, we know, with open borders, pro-legal immigration. People don't like ICE that much.
Trying to be able to have illegals to vote in our elections.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like that aspect of a country being a country is already under attack, and it has been under attack, and it's what we're fighting against. It's kind of part of what President Trump was elected on back in 2024, and hopefully part of what we can make the midterms about. So we'll see that. But we also need to have sort of a national thesis too. I think that's the best way I can describe it personally, is a national thesis, where it's an idea that we are based around, because in politics is really for the common good. We are actually trying to find ways to practically implement policies and measures to make the society better, make people better, and live in a good society. A good government yields a just society. And so the more, I guess, like social sciencey, like squishy sciences, as some people call it, part of having a country is also under attack too. And a lot of that does come from not only the rising secularism, but it also just comes from the willingness of people to come into the country. People want to come into the country, and people want to take over our national values that we have established.
Yeah, immigration is a great thing, and that's one good thing about America, is that it's such a melting pot. Like, my own family are immigrants from Italy, and my grandpa's German. My grandpa was born in Germany, and it's just, immigration's a great thing, but I think with immigration, assimilation is one of the most important things, because
it has to be measured and it has to be precise.
Yeah, we can't lose what our country was founded on, and that's why we have certain documents and amendments and things like that. But I feel like with the way that immigration is tackled today within politics, I feel like it's there. I've met people with very strong views on immigration, where people say absolutely no immigration. That's where I would disagree. But at this point where we're at mass immigration, looking at the UK and just how many Islam individuals have immigrated to the UK, it seems to me like their government is being affected, their people are being affected, and we can see it in America, where people are coming over from Mexico over open borders, how they're getting away with things that they should not be getting away with, and our justice system is taking the damage for that. It's taking damage for that.
And we can all understand, and we can all agree that we have the First Amendment, we have the freedom of religion, and we have the ability to practice what we believe. And obviously that applies to Muslims. Islamization is very different from the Muslim faith itself, or the way that the Muslim faith is practiced. We are not attacking Muslims. I have many Muslim friends. I go to a public school, as is well established. And so I know many Muslim people who are perfectly nice, who are fine. One of my Muslim friends that I know from somewhere else, she's pro-Trump. She loves this country so much. Her family does. Her family moved here. Her grandparents moved here. I think her dad moved here. And they really do love the country. And so it really doesn't have anything to do with Muslim people themselves. But overall, America is a Christian nation. And people get sensitive over this topic, because people will say, oh, no, America is a secular nation because we have freedom of speech. We have separation of church and state, which is a misnomer. That's a complete other conversation that I feel like I keep alluding to. We should do a future episode on that. But it really goes back to the idea that politics is to advance a cause of good. And so we need to know what good is, and we can't really know what good is, and we can't define what justice and what goodness is if we don't actually have values that it pertains to. And so where does that come from? That comes from religion. That comes from above us. That comes from the transcendental realm. And so we have to base our governance off of something that exists that's bigger than us. Because if it's just people here and we make laws and somebody makes a bad law and it harms a lot of people and then they die, and the belief is that nothing happens to them, they don't get any justice for what they did in the afterlife or anything like that, then we aren't going to have a good society. The idea is that we need to have God-fearing men. This Constitution is made only for moral and religious people. It's wholly inadequate for the government of any other. It's a famous quote from, I believe it was George Washington's commencement address, not commencement address, in the college realm right now, farewell address. And so this idea that we have to have a good government because we have to have men and women who are concerned with making good policies, who are going to make a good society. That's really important, and we can't just disregard that. And so we do have certain roots, and if we bring in a mass group of people who are advocating for something that is mostly antithetical to what a lot of that is, and Lila Ray will go into a lot of that later, that's going to destroy the country.
Exactly, because when you dig into the Islamic religion, the more and more that you find, it doesn't align with the way that the Western world is run, and it certainly doesn't align with how America is run. There are so many things within it that we can just find that just don't align morally, or even, morally you can argue, some people will argue. However, I will beg this, a lot of the times, even in America and Western society, a lot of Muslims will deny certain parts of their religion, and that I wanted to also bring up later. If you're going to claim to be something, claim it wholeheartedly. I don't want to I don't want to attack people, but I want to ask the question of how you can stand and defend certain things.
Whatever you believe, you have to be ideologically consistent.
Exactly.
So you can't disregard certain parts of something that you claim to believe and then believe in others and practice others. Mm-hmm.
It says in the Quran, I can't recall the exact verse, but Muhammad himself tells Jews that if you're going to go by your own holy book, you go by the whole holy book. You go by the whole Torah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Muslims they don't do the same thing with their own book. In fact, I feel like sometimes when they're defending their religion, they don't even read. I feel like it feels like they don't even read their own holy book sometimes.
Yeah, and that's another conversation, but I think a lot of that is how that's, again, applied to the group as a whole, and then the group in terms of politics and what we're really trying to govern here. I think that's why one of the most egregious attacks on the country itself is on our most sacred values, of our Judeo-Christian values, of us believing that we are free to make our own choices. We are people we need a society. No man is an island unto himself, and so we do need rules and we need regulations to control people and to control the lower appetites. But then again, we are people who have been made in the image of God, and so we have that amazing ability to reason, and we have the amazing ability to know right from wrong. And so we also have some freedom to make those choices ourselves, and that's what this country was founded on. And that is the Judeo-Christian idea of America. That is the Judeo-Christian idea of Americans in the United States, and what all of our founding documents prescribe, and what they say that we should follow, what they say that this country was founded on. And the Islamic faith as a whole doesn't necessarily pay into that, and it doesn't pay into the idea that people are free, and it doesn't pay into the idea, at the very least, I'm no Muslim theologian, but if you look at countries that are Islamic countries, they are not run like that. And maybe that's a fault of Islam, you might say. If you are a Muslim yourself, you might be like, oh, well, that's fundamentalism. That's not necessarily how it's supposed to. And that there's a conversation with that too. But overall, the way that those countries are all being governed shows that the Muslim faith doesn't ally with Western values and with Western society.
Exactly.
And that's why those values, those Christian values, are important to instill.
You ask yourself why does so many Muslims are actually fleeing from those countries. I watched a video where this man was doing street interviews with Muslims in the UK, and time again they were saying that England was just better than the places like Iraq and Syria, and you would ask them why, and they wouldn't give you a straight answer as to why.
Yeah, that's the thing nobody knows. I think with immigration as a whole, people will come from countries that aren't as put together as the United States, one could say.
Plenty of places.
And people have done that for as long as America has been a country, and so that does make sense. But also, we have to know why exactly America is the best. We have to know why people come to the Western countries to escape the chaos in their own countries.
Yeah.
And if we can't identify that, that only worsens the problem.
Exactly. America isn't perfect in any means, but I feel like when we're looking at these other countries and the problems that they have, we have to ask ourselves, why is it that there are so many flooding into our country? How can we uphold our own values as America and our own freedoms while we have so many different viewpoints flowing in? That's why I say, like, a lot of people even say this, and we hear this all the time. There is no neutral talking points anymore within politics. There is no neutral. Everything has conflict.
And that's because it's all communicated. It all communicates itself to a higher purpose and a higher set of values. And so Lila Ray will dig deeper into that in the next segment. So stick around.
Most people think they have options when searching for the best deals when they travel. But here's the shocking truth. 100% of the major travel agencies are owned by just two entities, Expedia and Booking Holdings. They claim to offer the lowest rates, but due to the hotel rate parity agreement, they all have the same pricing, limiting genuine competition. When you book through these sites, you act as your own travel agent, but the profits are going to organizations that don't support our patriot values. We cannot allow that to continue. So, we decided to make travel great again by starting a US-based travel membership platform, mypatriottravel.com. We are patriots helping patriots. Together, we can disrupt the travel industry by not spending our hard-earned dollars supporting the radical left. For just $29.99 per month, you gain access to true wholesale rates on travel, saving you on average 35% and up to 65%. Book as often as you like, with no limits. Keep your hard-earned dollars in your pocket and spend them on things you need and want to support. Go to mypatriottravel.com/TAFW and grab your membership today. mypatriottravel.com/TAFW, making travel great again.
Are you a true American? Then it's time to get connected. Download the America First Media and Television app and stay up to date with real news, bold voices, and live events from the America First Warehouse. From national broadcasts and exclusive shows to comedy nights, concerts, and special events. It's all right at your fingertips. No filters, no spin, just America First. Download the America First Media and Television app today and be part of the movement.
I'm sure you guys remember the platinum single Justice for All with Donald Trump and the J6 Prison Choir. We'll get ready for round two. We're coming out with Anthem of the Free with High Res and the J6 Prison Choir. It's coming out now. It's pre-sale until December 19th when it drops. Get yours on all platforms, Google Play, Apple iTunes. Get it. It's going to be hot.
Justice for all, our voices ring. The anthem of the free.
It's me, Joe the Box, the America First Warehouse, most patriotic venue in all the land.
The America First Warehouse, a beacon for all to see, a symbol of humility. For the patriots of America, we stand tall and free. In the America First Warehouse, where our hearts will always be.
Welcome back to the America First Warehouse and our podcast, Finding the Future. Again, I'm Alden.
And I'm Lila Ray.
And we were talking about the Islamization of America just a couple minutes ago. So
Yeah.
Lila Ray's got some interesting things.
One thing I wanted to bring up was something interesting that I saw. This happened a while back, but if we look at slide 8, you'll see something that pretty honestly, I mean, it angered me when I first saw it. Slide 8.
Just bring up cut 8. Yeah, there we go.
If you can notice what those are, I'm going to tell you what those are now. Those are Islamic prayer mats laid atop the 9/11 memorial
In New York City,
in New York City. So we have to ask ourselves, 9/11 was probably one of the biggest terrorist attacks on our country, and it's obviously one that we swore never to forget. Clearly somebody's forgotten something. But I want to beg the question, why is it that we see a lot of the times all these terrorist attacks coming out of these Islamic groups? I have the answer for you, and it is in the Quran, 9:5. I couldn't read the actual chapters, but they are pretty easy to find just based on the numbers. 9:5. And when the sacred months have passed, then kill the polytheists wherever you find them, and capture them, and besiege them, and sit in wait for them at every place of ambush. But if they should repent, establish prayer, and give zakah, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Let them go on their way. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and merciful. So kill those who don't believe in Allah. So Islam is considered, or often called, the religion of peace. Does that sound peaceful to you?
Yeah,
I beg the question.
I think that's another misnomer, and I think
I beg the question.
I was reading up what different scholars and people who defend Islam and everything like that, they'll say that that's a historical document too. So he's talking about the people who are in the midst of war right then and there. But if you look over at the Bible, Christianity doesn't have that. Christianity doesn't have God saying, kill them because they don't believe, kill the polytheists.
In fact, everything you see in the Bible when it comes down to war is always it's always along the lines of trusting God, and God will take care of all of your issues. So I'm actually going to go down right here to another thing said in the Quran. This is 5:38 through 39. This is what Allah says about thieves. As for male and female thieves, cut off their hands for what they have done, a deterrent from Allah, and Allah is Almighty, All-Wise. As for male and female thieves, cut off their hands for what they have done, a deterrent from Allah, and Allah, Almighty and Wise. So, I'm going to just say, Allah has told us to cut off the limbs of thieves. But Yahweh said, vengeance is mine. It is mine to avenge. This is the Bible, Deuteronomy 32:35 through 36. It is mine to avenge. I will repay in due time. Their foot will slip. Their day of disaster is near, and their doom rushes upon them. The Lord will vindicate his people and relent concerning his servants. When he sees their strength is gone, and no one is left, slave or free. So, Allah tells his people to take action. There's a difference clearly here because God does not want us to take that action. If you read in the Bible, it says we are to turn the other cheek.
Mm-hmm.
Violence is almost never the answer within the Bible. I honestly, I cannot take seriously anybody who actually uses the argument that Islam is one of peace is a religion of peace, because I'm actually going to go all the way back up to my.
And I think it's also a matter of, again, deeper theology, and neither of us are theologians. And I think I can anticipate some people saying, "Oh wait, but doesn't it say in the Bible to cut off your off your ear if it causes you to sin, or cut off your hand,
gouge out your eye if it causes."
Yes.
That verse in particular is often taken out of context.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to actually gouge out your eye. That is actually. If I could think of the word, that's actually a metaphor.
Aha.
Yes, a metaphor, meaning take out whatever in your life is causing you to sin. So if you have a friend who is leading you down the wrong path, maybe distance yourself from that friend situation. You're not gouging your real eye out.
Yes, and it's also a matter of new covenant versus old covenant too. And with the coming of Jesus came new rules. This is why Christians, people often ask, why don't Christians follow all those rules that are in the Old Testament? That's because Jesus has fulfilled new covenant. He is the fulfillment. He is the Lamb of God. And so, there are different standards overall. But I kind of wanted to return quickly back to the 9/11 memorial and the prayer mats over it, because I would venture to say, most of the people who died in 9/11 weren't Muslim. They were not devout Muslims. They were they're not that those two things are always contradictory, but they're in New York City. They were working in, the World Trade Tower, the World Trade Center, and it's not like it was a Muslim attack on Muslims. That's not how it's known in society, as a Muslim attack on Muslims. And so at this point, it's even a little bit, I would venture to say, stupid to do that, to put Muslim prayer mats over. It's immoral, it's wrong, it's disgusting, but it's also kind of stupid. If you're trying to make a point, why would you do that? Because the only way in which the Muslim faith was involved in the 9/11 attacks was the faith of the attackers. They were Islamic fundamentalists. They took everything literally. And so why would you want to remind people of that and have people connect the Muslim faith to the event even more. I hear when 9/11 is taught in the classroom, they always say, well, this is not Muslims, this is Islamic fundamentalists, this is not what all Muslims are, don't judge Muslims based on 9/11, which I agree with. But then whatever group put the prayer mats on there obviously wants people to reconsider, to think about the Muslim faith in relation to 9/11 again. And what is that having people do? That's having people make the association. And so at a certain point, if you're talking politics, if you're talking about trying to win, if you're talking about trying to convince people, it's stupid, because you're really just reminding people of the faith that was concerned in those attacks. And so that's just my little 2 cents.
And I would like to go back to what we were talking about, of how the Muslim religion doesn't fit in within Western society. Can we please put up the slide 1? Okay, if I have that in front of me, I do, to read that.
So what is this? This is
Yes.
consummation. Oh yes,
Yes,
age of marriage.
so
and
this is
consummation
talking
major
about,
issue, yes.
so you can never separate what is child marriage from Islam, because this is often what Muslims tend to try and deny about their own religion. Classic Islamic sources state that Aisha, the bride of Muhammad, was 6 years of age at the time of her marriage with Muhammad, who was then 50, and 9 at the time of consummation. So if we can, I'm going to put up another slide. It's titled, it was one of the, yes, can we play slide, oh my gosh, it's not here.
What are we talking
We'll
about?
come back to that. So we'll come back to that slide.
You can back out of it?
Yeah, that was very
I
odd.
believe, okay, so
It's-
from memory,
we
it was
will
who
come
can
up-
back out of it.
Yeah.
And if the children can get back out of it, and it was at the age of puberty, they can decide whether or not they want to continue the marriage. But I feel like it's a concession, I guess, but it's like not much better, because you're still kind of, if you're 9 and you're married, then you're kind of 9 and you're married until you're 13 or
13.
however old you are when you hit puberty.
And honestly, within the religion, it would say probably that the man, if consummating a child, there is no consent there, because considering the age of the child, so that man has rule over that child.
Yeah, and again, it kind of denies the idea of the Western philosophy that people have consent, or they have the freedom to be an individual, and they have the freedom to obviously be themselves. And, not that Muslims en masse are saying that they believe this and saying that they advocate for this, but again, in its principles, in its actual text, the Muslim faith is again antithetical to Western theology and Western governance as a whole, because that's not what we recognize. We recognize that children are made in the image of God, and they are to be themselves, and they are not to be taken advantage of, and they are not to be used as property when they are when they are young, just because of their age, just because of their vulnerability. That does not mean
Yes.
that you can take advantage of them. And so again, that's
Now-
antithetical to the Western ideology.
Now, as we're talking about this topic, I would like to just take a quick look at what Jesus said about children. About that time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" Jesus called a little child to him and put the child among them. Then he said, "I tell you the truth, unless you turn from your sins and become like little children, you will never get into the kingdom of heaven. So anyone who's become as humble as this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And anyone who welcomes a little child like this on my behalf is welcoming me." So Islam is condoning the essentially stripping away of the innocence of children. Often I see how Islam is the opposite of Christianity. I believe Islam is a demonic religion. So Christianity almost always, and Jesus almost always, goes against the exact words of Muhammad and Allah, which I find very interesting, considering that Islam itself calls Jesus a prophet of Allah. How is it that his words often go against everything that your religion stands for?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the niche theological arguments and theological disagreements that is among the religions. But overall, as a whole, again, if we look at this in the macro scale and we look at this at countries as a whole, the countries that are featuring the fundamental Islamic version of the text of the Quran, they are taking away the rights of children, and it's mostly agreed on the macro scale of the Western countries. And you'll even hear anybody of any really faith or ideology in the United States. I have yet to come across somebody who says, no, what those Islamic countries are doing are good. That's okay. That's totally fine because it's fundamental Islam, and so we're for that. So again, even those who might have differing views on migration, even those who might have differing views on any kind of policy disagreement, we can all eventually come together and say, okay, 9/11 was bad and child marriage is bad, because those are still Western values. And so that just kind of speaks to the idea as a whole that Islamization and people coming to the United States overall is not necessarily good en masse, because those ideas will be brought, and because they are so contradictory, it will eventually destroy and it is destroying the fabric and the culture of America and the overall social cohesion. And so we will discuss a little bit more about kind of the history behind this migration and kind of my experience, especially in the public school, when we come back.
250 years ago, a nation was born. Built on courage, driven by freedom, defined by patriots who stood their ground. Today, we don't just remember that legacy, we wear it. This is more than a shirt. It's a symbol of strength, freedom, and pride. I'm Steve Stern, COO of theflagshirt.com, and I invite you to celebrate 250 years of the United States with us. Wear your pride, stand for something, get your shirts today.
Politics feeling broken? What if you could match with politicians the way you match on a dating app, but based on real values? Meet OpScore from GoUSA, the first ever values-based political matchmaker. Think Match.com for elections that aligns voters with politicians. We score politicians on a nonpartisan scale based on your priorities. Track your politician scores and take our OpScore Challenge survey to match with leaders who align with you at opscore.org. Stop voting blind. Start matching smart. Politicians work for you.
Are you a true American? Then it's time to get connected. Download the America First Media and Television app and stay up to date with real news, bold voices, and live events from the America First Warehouse. From national broadcasts and exclusive shows to comedy nights, concerts, and special events. It's all right at your fingertips. No filters, no spin, just America First. Download the America First Media and Television app today and be part of the movement.
Corporate transfer, fine professional, moving and storage, and inventory management.
If the vote count is accurate, then how come the number of voters is different? And if it's not accurate, then why was it certified? We are suing Letitia James and the New York State Board of Elections for a conspiracy against fundamental rights. This is not about who won. It's not about what party. It's about the fact that they don't care about your rights.
It's me, Joe the Box. And I'm John the Blanket with the America First Podcast.
That's what I'm talking about. The Fred Rubino Podcast, coming to you from the America First Warehouse.
Welcome, everybody, to the James Justice Show, tearing these airwaves apart with all the craziness that goes on in the world.
Welcome to the Patriots Podcast. Good evening, everyone.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the On the Right Side podcast here at the America First Warehouse in Long Island, New York.
Shane Jenkins here with another episode of Liberty's Cage.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, Red, Right, and True.
We are streaming live on America First Media and Television app.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Downey Jr. podcast. Be free, stay free.
The America First Warehouse, where our hearts will always be.
All right, welcome back, everybody. So this is a very interesting topic that we've been diving into with Islamization of America. And talking about the Islamization of America, it's hard not to look over at our neighbors, like the UK, and what's been going on over there. Let's play cut 4, because I think this will interest a lot of people to see how close to home that it hits.
This is London. This is how many mosques are around me. This is what the sign looks like when you get off the train here. These are the advertisements you see. This is what it looks like when kids get out of school. This is what the political candidates look like. This is what it's like walking through the grocery store here. The UK has become unrecognizable, and that is why I traveled thousands of miles to come here, to find out why and how this happened. Did the UK truly fall, and do they want to do this to our country next?
It is within the nature of the Islamic religion to go in and to take over. Because obviously, as Christians, we want to make as many disciples as we can.
Mhm.
And on their side, they also would like to do that. But often you see it on the Islamic side, it's more about control than it is truly belief in the religion when it comes down to them taking over in politics and situations like that. It was just very interesting for me to see the UK, an English-speaking country, having words in another language on their signs as you get off the train. I honestly, we see that a lot now in America, as a lot
especially in New York too.
Yeah, especially in New York, as we see Spanish is mostly, well, Spanish is pretty much the second language that most people
Yeah.
speak.
And I think for the most part, I would say the most interesting part about that video is the fact that it really changes all parts of the culture. You saw the for mayor sign. There was a Muslim woman running for mayor, so it changes actual, hard politics about being elected and stuff. It also changes the people walking on the streets. It changes what the streets look like. It changes what the architecture looks like. It obviously changes what the language is like, as you were just saying, and it changes what the faith makeup is like too. And that really does matter in a country that you can't necessarily talk about maybe openly about your faith because you feel that, oh, maybe somebody believes something different. We don't have the same theological underpinnings, and so we can't really relate, and it's harder to relate. I was listening to the John Doyle show with the Blaze TV. I like John Doyle. I've been following him for quite a while now since his series Heck Off Commie. But I've been watching his new podcast, and he was just talking about this. I believe it was a couple episodes ago, and he cited a statistic that said people who live in neighborhoods and even on just streets and blocks and where it's not as ethnically ambiguous or as ethnically homogenous and as linguistically also religious, where it's people who don't really practice the common religion, they will report in surveys that they feel less likely to trust their neighbors, and they feel less able to just go over and knock on somebody's door and ask for a cup of sugar.
We miss those days, when everybody knew when somebody got sick or had a baby. There was like a casserole on the
Yes, there are other forums. There are other causes. There's social media, and there's obviously industrialization overall, where everybody just is driving around all the time and doing a million different things. So there's also that, but the fact that people can't feel comfortable and feel part of their own family. And diversity isn't impossible. It's not impossible to live with different people, but there is a general sociological and psychological underpinning that people like to be near people who look the same and who sound the same, and that's not necessarily a bad thing as long as you're not taking it out badly on the people who don't look the same and
it
speak
leads
the
to
same.
less conflict.
And
if we look at the American high school, peer pressure has always been
here
a
I am,
situation.
yeah.
Peer pressure has always been a situation. But can you think to yourself, if you were given the chance to stand in front of your high school and openly speak about your beliefs, you probably would, but would the average high schooler?
Yeah, no average high schooler would. And I think that also speaks to the average high schooler themselves. But in my school, one of the observations that I've made a lot that I really haven't talked about that much because there's really nobody in my high school to talk about it, so to speak to that. But there are different races in my school, and there are people who speak different languages. And obviously if there are people who, we have ENL, who they maybe just moved here and they don't know English. So obviously they're going to stick with their own people, and they're going to stick with those people who don't know English yet because they can't really speak to anybody else. But even in terms of people who speak perfect English, they've lived here all their life, generally speaking, the Southeast Asian kids will be friends with the Southeast Asian kids. The black kids will be friends with the black kids, and the white kids will be friends with the white kids. And there is obviously some intermingling. I have friends of different races and of different religions, but generally speaking, it's an unspoken rule that usually your friend group is made up of people who are the same race as you. If we're in gym class and we're walking around the track, people kind of coalesce into their own groups, and you'll see, there are a couple of Indian kids there speaking to each other, and then maybe like in front of them walking in the track, there's a couple of black kids. And again, it's perfectly fine, but people like to tout diversity, but then it's just.
Is it realistic?
It's actual
Not
human
really.
psychology that you want people who look like you and who have the same values as you, because inherently they do have the same values as you, and they have the same situations and the same practices as you.
Exactly. Let's be honest. That's why the church is separated into denominations, because it brings less conflict within the church. But denominations and race are definitely just two huge different things. But let's honestly take a look at what the left thinks about all this. They're calling for essentially segregation. It's just not racist when it's towards white people.
Yeah,
Of course
and
it's
there was another clip that I found interesting. It's if we play cut 5 in a second. It's kind of just about there was a kid in Texas of all places, Texas of all states. It wasn't New York, it
Good
wasn't
old
California, it was Texas, where this issue arose. So if we could just play cut 5 real quickly.
Is it
We'll
true
kind of
that your
group
your school's libraries offer Islamic literature like the Quran and other things?
Yes, so McMillan Junior High and Wiley ISD offers a Quran but no Bible available.
But no Bible. So there's a Quran, but the Bible's not allowed.
Correct.
Have you talked to the school about why they would allow a Quran but not a Bible?
So I haven't, the principals actually run away from me and hide, so I can't have a discussion with my principals because I act like an adult and they act like children.
To some people in this room, what I'm about to say may
All right,
sound
we
a
can cut
bit
it there.
controversial.
There we go. All right. So that little clip was really telling to me, and it was really interesting. And so Lila Ray, a couple days before the show, she asked me if I could go into my school library and see if that was the same thing there. I did go into my school library. I did see a Quran. I did not see a Bible. Now, I don't like to make unfounded claims, and so I don't want to dive too deep into it yet. I wasn't able to talk to the librarian that day, but I will go when I can. I'm going to go to my public school library,
side
and I'm going to
mission.
say, "Oh, I'm researching a little bit about religions, and I noticed that you had a Quran, and I'm using that for references. I was wondering if you also had a Bible that I could refer to, because maybe somebody took the Bible out to maybe somebody lent the Bible, the library lent the Bible out to
exactly.
students.
We don't want to assume anything.
Yes, I don't want to assume. So I do want to investigate that a little more, because it was also interesting to me that my school also might have that issue.
Within public schools, I would like, as a homeschooler, the reason why I asked this, because I didn't think it would be something that we would have to talk about in this day and age where equality is like always something that everyone's pushing for. But
Equality for thee, but not for me.
Exactly.
Almost, yes.
It's like they mix up equity and equality quite often. But I would actually give this like a mission to you. If you're a public schooler, even if you're a homeschooler, go to your public library or go to your school library and find out, do they have a Quran and do they have a Bible? And let us know. Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, I also saw a bunch of other interesting little tidbits there too. I saw a book that was titled "Why the Christian Right is Wrong" in my school. That was in my school. We also have a lot of other interesting things about. There are books in my school library about lesbian relationships. There are books about the LGBTQ. There's a lot of racial books. There's that one famous book. I can't put my finger on the name right now. Oh, The Hate You Give. That's like a BLM book that was really popular in 2020. We have 1 million copies of those in my library, and I have yet to see a book that I recognize as a conservative book. I mean, maybe they're there. Again, I would like to search it a little bit more before I graduate. But yeah, so that's also just kind of overall.
What are they getting at when putting these books in like front and center? Like I said before, there is no like neutral talking point anymore.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
obviously a point trying to be made. And let's talk about. So we always want to talk about, especially on the left, they like to talk about how different. How do they put that? Like hate speech and things can make minorities feel. Let's be honest right now. Let's be honest. The minorities are no longer minorities. So you care about all these different minorities and how this speech makes them feel. What about us as Christians? Christians are a minority within our not within our country, but they're a minority within the world currently. Like, let's look around at Nigeria and Iraq and Iran. Look at the numbers.
Yeah, there are minority Christians in other countries.
Exactly.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Look at the numbers of persecution and people being killed for their faith currently. We're not allowed to talk about that, but we are somehow allowed to talk and read openly the Quran within our school. when the Quran I just read before is calling for the literal death of people that disagree with it.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting. And also, like, things can be used for research, and it's not necessarily, the law technically permits public schools to have a Quran and not a Bible, because just because you have the book doesn't mean you're endorsing the religion, so that doesn't count, which I find it interesting the way that law is interpreted. Whereas if you look at other certain laws, the placement of things is seen as an endorsement of it.
I would beg the question, what is the difference between the Quran and the Bible? Because there really isn't. The Quran,
in terms of religious significance.
Exactly.
Yes.
The
Not in terms of
Quran
content.
is yes, exactly. The content is very different. But what is the difference? That's their holy book. This is our holy book. You're allowed to have one and not the other. That's very, very
and that's exactly the unfairness. And I like how they said, oh yeah, I tried to talk to my principal, but they're acting like a child and I'm acting like an adult, so I can't really actually get an answer. And me personally, I can relate to that a lot. There are a ton of other things that I've had to deal with my public school about. But that's a story for another day. I feel like we should do a story on public school issues, because I think it's
I would be very interested
quite
in doing
a few interesting stories about that.
I as well, from the homeschool perspective. There are many reasons why we choose homeschool.
Yes, but now we are looking forward. We're looking to see what we can do, the two of us, and what everybody else can do about this issue. So stick with us.
Me, Joe the Box, the America First Warehouse, most patriotic venue in all the land.
The America First Warehouse, a beacon for all to see, a symbol of unity. For the patriots of America, we stand tall and free. In the America First Warehouse, where our hearts will always be.
The America First Ultra MAGA Store. For all your MAGA needs. We sell t-shirts, tumblers, flags, hats, sneakers, bumper stickers, and a whole lot more. The most patriotic America First retail store. The America First Ultra MAGA Store.
Are you a true American? Then it's time to get connected. Download the America First Media and Television app and stay up to date with real news, bold voices, and live events from the America First Warehouse. From national broadcasts and exclusive shows to comedy nights, concerts, and special events. It's all right at your fingertips. No filters, no spin, just America First. Download the America First Media and Television app today and be part of the movement.
Corporate transfer. Fine professional, moving and storage, and inventory management.
America First Warehouse was really the most patriotic venue that you can ever imagine. We wanted to build something for people to be able to come to and feel so comfortable and so relaxed, because there is nothing out there like it. We give an opportunity for people to really feel good about themselves and about this great country.
All right, welcome back to the last segment of Founding the Future. I'm Alden.
And I'm Nyla Ray.
And we always like to use the fourth segment to try to have a positive message on whatever we're talking about, and kind of talking about what we can do to fix the problem and to promote these Christian values. And I believe it was not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before that was the Rededicate 250 event, where in the National Mall there was a big stage set up. There's a bunch of Christian artists and musicians and speakers and prayer leaders who led the crowd and everybody who was watching online in prayer, and kind of, again, rededicated America to its founding. And if we can play cut 7, this is my all-time favorite, Mike Johnson. He led a prayer, which it was 10 minutes long, so it was a bit long. So we got a cut of it. And it kind of just shows what we can do on a personal level about what we can do to kind of save this country. So cut 7.
We remember that your mighty hand has been upon our nation since the very beginning. When our forefathers took up the great cause of American independence, they turned to you in steadfast prayer. And on this very day, now 2.5 centuries ago, the Second Continental Congress gathered in Philadelphia. Our founders held a decisive day of what they called humiliation, fasting, and prayer. Above all, Lord, grant us the courage in your favor to preserve this republic. Just as we in the beginning dedicated this land to your most holy name, today, here, Lord, in this 250th year of American independence, we hereby rededicate the United States of America as one nation under God.
So again, the entire point behind the whole day was the founders, before a few months before they declared their independence, they had a national day of, I believe, prayer, fasting, and humility to kind of humble themselves before God and call God into their decisions and, dedicate the country that they were about to found to God and to Christian values, and to kind of state that this is what this country was going to be run on. This was what these laws were going to be created with this idea. So I think that was a part of a beautiful prayer given by Speaker Mike.
It's a beautiful full circle moment. That day we had my band was at a restaurant and we were celebrating the National Day of Prayer. We had a bunch of people from my church come up and pray in between songs. Honestly, the Bible calls us to pray for our leaders, to pray for our countries. That is the biggest thing that we can do as a generation and as a church.
Yeah, and that's how we're going to fix this.
Prayer is
you gotta start everything with prayer.
It's a direct connection to God. We can just I know Catholics' prayer is different, obviously, but from my standpoint, it's a powerful thing to just say, sit and have a conversation with God. Now, to offer a little bit more of a uplifting message, here's Matthew 5:10 through 12. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Whoa, chair. We, as a church, have always been looked down upon by different people, and Jesus himself was persecuted and mocked in the last moments of his life.
And he himself was going against an entire group of people who everything that they believed was contrary to him.
Yeah, he went against the highest religious leaders of the time, and honestly, when we look at the fulfillment of the old covenant, moving us into the new covenant, the new covenant. It's so interesting to think that we have that fulfillment that the Jews have been waiting on for so long, and as a generation, we need to just have knowledge of what the Bible says.
Yeah,
it is our best
faith
defense,
and find hope in it, because no matter what happens, He will return, and we do go to heaven if we make all the qualifications.
But a light unto my feet,
yes,
and
exactly.
a lamp unto my path.
And so, to answer the overall question of what exactly we can do, we can obviously work for what we believe. Nick Shirley just had his great documentary, well, not just, but a few months ago had his great documentary come out about the fraud in Minnesota, and kind of the cause being immigration and migration from all of those groups of people who caused that fraud. So we have Nick Shirley, who was working against that. There's another person on Instagram who I'm quite fond of, Code Victorian. You can find him, I believe it's just at Code Victorian on Instagram, and he's really his idea is Europe first. And so obviously we're Americans, so we're America first. But his whole idea is that he wants to recapture what Europe was and the greatness of Europe and bring that culture back. And he's working on that a lot. And there are, many other Christian figures who are leading this fight for America. So, we have our work to be done, and we should not just sit around and pray. Well, prayer is great, obviously, but we also have to do a lot of work, too. And so there is that work. But really, at the end of the day, we have to pray, and we have to place our faith in God. And, Catholic prayer is a little bit different, but it's not that different. We still have our lengthy conversations with God, and we connect a lot with Him, just as every Christian does, and that's really the most important thing.
And I think honestly, the division within the church is one of its biggest problems. If we can just learn, the way that I feel about it is, if you believe that Jesus died on the cross and rose again, and He's the only way to heaven, I have no problem with you. We don't need to fight about theology.
It's quite interesting, but for the sake of our fight,
exactly.
That's for free time.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need to fight about theology. We just need to push. We need to push forward for the work of Christ at the end of the day. And there's a lot of work to be done for that. And you can't always legislate morality. I mean, you can't. But we can still fight for what we believe in. And politically, we can still fight for things that we believe in politically. We just did an episode on the fight for life. And that is both a political and religious issue.
Yeah.
Yes, I would believe. There is no neutral anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, it goes kind of back to the beginning of the show where I was talking about those ethical underpinnings. Aristotle sees ethics as the precursor to politics. You can't really legislate anything, and you can't really have an idea of what you want your society to be if you don't know what things are. If you don't know what bad is and you don't know what good is, you don't know whether or not a society you may be about to create or steward will go in the direction of good or bad. So you do need to know those important lessons, and you do need to know those things. So
that's why I'm grateful for a country where we get to choose our leaders and vote on our leaders, because it gives you the opportunity to look at where are they getting their set of morals from, and how is that impacting their policies.
And that's the beauty of Western and American political thought that we are trying to save here.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I think overall, the message of positivity is just to always keep your faith and really just to follow God and to do what He tells you to do and do what the Bible tells you and do what you know is right and do it lovingly, because again, as we were saying with our entire topic, it was not against Muslims themselves, but it's against, the mass influx of those values into our country, and there's really no other underpinnings that we are currently keeping up today that we can say, okay, well, there's a certain limit here. This is a Christian country, and we don't allow certain things, which, at a certain point when we get to a spot where we are so lost with what we believe as a nation, that stuff is going to become worse and worse. And, we've already seen it start.
Exactly. And just to jump in real quick, if the comments are open, which I believe they are on our last few episodes, they've been open.
Yeah.
Leave us some questions. I would love to hear some questions that you guys have about things that we talk about, and I would love to address and answer them.
Yeah, I think it's great to have the youth perspective, because there are a lot of older people out there who don't necessarily, aren't necessarily around people like us all that much, and they're not around groups of people like us. So we have a more first-person vision and sight of what's actually happening. And so I think it is really interesting to answer older people's questions and their queries about what it is, what it's like to live in Generation Z.
Exactly. And if you follow us on any of our socials, which you can put up Cut 9, you can let us know about any topics that you're interested in, or let us know anything. If you just want to follow our journey, you can look at American Symposium, as Alden puts out all of her. Yes, that's her
weekly
website.
Pieces when
you
I
can look at all those QR codes that were up on Cut 9, my blog, if you're interested in learning about my journey and spiritual walk. You can look us both up on Instagram. You can follow my band for any events that we might have. Actually, June 14th with Cut 10 at the Pine Grove Inn. Oh, they don't. Okay, there is no flyer for that, but that's all right. I can look at that from here. With that, June 14th, my band will be at the Pine Grove Inn featuring recording artist Albert Kiever. And we're just going to have some nice worship and praise and worship. So if you're interested in that, Pine Grove Inn in Patchogue.
And that is one of the most important things that we should do. You know, we kind of using our calling, using our individual callings. I believe I was called to politics. I think you believe you were called to music ministry. Using those callings to fight for what we believe and fight for the future of this country, because we are the future of this country and our children are going to be the future of this country. And so it's kind of all about them, and it's all about what we believe that we should continue on.
Exactly, and like in what I read before, even Jesus calls us to have the humbleness of little children, right?
Of course, yes.
And I think that a lot of the times adults, especially in politics and these kind of conversations, they don't see a lot of the times us as intellectual equals. But I think
which makes sense to a certain degree.
To a certain degree, obviously. But I feel like everybody can learn something from everyone.
Yeah, and that's why I'm always big on conversation, just talking to people. I have an event later that I'm excited to talk to a lot of people at. You know, there's gonna be a lot of good people there. So it's just really just trying to rekindle those values of a country, just personally. You know, change starts with that Michael Jackson song, "The Man in the Mirror." You know, we kind of need to look into who we are first. We have to look into who we are first before we try to set our sights on the country as a whole. And so I think that's the most important thing.
All right, in these last few seconds, don't forget to leave us a comment or subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or anywhere you're watching. We'll see you guys next month.
Yep, and that's Founding the Future.
Patriots of America, we stand tall and free in the America First Warehouse, where our hearts will always be. America First Warehouse, a beacon for all to see.